Hello and welcome to Byju's IAS. Let's begin your daily quiz for today. Question number one on your screen is this. Consider the following statements with regards to allocation of election symbols in India. Number one, the Election Symbols Reservation and Allotment Order 1968 empowers the Election Commission to recognize political parties and allot symbols. Second, the Election Commission can decide disputes among viral groups and sections of a recognized political party staking claim to its name and symbol. Third, the Election Commission is the only authority to decide issues on a dispute or a merger under the order. Which of these given statements is or are correct? The correct answer here is D, since all the three given statements are correct. This 1968 order empowers the Election Commission of India to decide upon allocating symbols to political parties. Very often, when a political party splits and there is a dispute between which of the two sides will keep the original symbol, it is the Election Commission of India that gets to decide on such issues. The reason why we are discussing this is because of the Delhi High Court directive to the Election Commission of India to allot an election symbol to Chandrasekhar Azad's political party for the upcoming elections. So the issue is that Chandrasekhar Azad had sought a new election symbol for his political party called Azad Samaj Party Kashiram. Since the upcoming elections are in five states, he wanted a symbol which is not used by any party in the five states so that one common symbol can be given to him for the entire election cycle and he won't have to choose different symbols for different states. His party was already allotted a symbol for three states, but the same symbol was not available in the other states. That is why this matter went to the judiciary. Do understand that when you register a political party with the Election Commission of India, you can't get a symbol of your choice. The Election Commission of India will give you options from the symbols that are available in the list of the Election Commission, and you have to choose one amongst them only. His party was given the symbol helicopter, which could have been used in Punjab, Goa, and Manipur, while not in UP and Uttarakhand. That is why he wanted a common symbol that could be used in all the five states having elections in the coming months. Question number two. Which amongst the following is not correct with regards to the gift city? Number one, it will not have any residential facilities. Second, it will be India's first greenfield city. Third, the center government is offering a range of tax exemptions for setting up international operations at the gift city. And fourth, Singapore Arbitration Center has been set up at the gift city for dispute resolution. Which of these is not correct? And the answer here is A, since it will have residential facilities as well. In fact, one of India's most reputed builders, that is Sobha Developers, has been building residential facilities in the Gift City. GIFT stands for Gujarat International Finance Tech City. It's a business district being built between Ahmedabad and Gandhinagar in Gujarat and will act as a business hub attracting international institutions from across the world. The government has also offered a lot of tax exemptions to international units coming up and setting up their units at the gift city. Not just this, to encourage businesses with their investment, the government has also allowed setting up Singapore Arbitration Center so that if there is any dispute, it could be resolved in a speedy manner. The question has been taken from this article in the Hindu newspaper, which talks about the gift city emerging as India's first greenfield city. So there are two types of projects usually, greenfield and brownfield. Greenfield are projects which are built from the scratch at a place where there was no infrastructure earlier. Brownfield, on the other hand, refers to upgradation of an existing project. The article tells you that the gift city is coming up on the banks of the Sabarmati River and is spread across 886 acres. This was a project which was first envisaged when Prime Minister Modi used to be the Chief Minister of Gujarat in the year 2007. It already has over 200 entities and over 12,000 people working in the gift city. Question number 3. Recently seen in the news, southern birdwing and grass jewel are number 1. Largest and smallest butterflies found in India, respectively. Second, species of butterflies that recently became extinct from India. Third, migratory birds that are hunted in Nagaland. And fourth, recently discovered frog species from Western Ghats. The correct answer here is A. These are the largest and the smallest butterflies that are found in India. This question is based on the Hindu paper's news article today, which talks about the recently concluded butterfly survey, which went on for 4 days at the Pichi Vazhani Wildlife Division. This survey marked an amazing increase in the number of butterfly species found in India. The article tells you that the southern birdwing is the largest butterfly found in India, while the grass jewel is the smallest one. Apart from this, Buddha peacock, that is a state butterfly of Kerala, was also recorded in this survey. This survey was conducted by the Kerala Forest Department and the Travancore Nature History Society in Trivandrum. Apart from recording the butterfly species, the survey also recorded birds, reptiles, amphibians, and spiders. Question number 4. With reference to the G20, which amongst the following correctly defines Troika? Number 1. Three member nations with the largest GDP sizes. Second, three member nations that will hold the presidency in the next 3 years. Third, three member nations comprising current, previous, and upcoming presidencies of the G20. And fourth, top three resolutions adopted after the G20 meeting. The correct answer here is C. That is, the word Troika refers to the three nations, including the current president of the G20, the previous president, and the next president. The reason why we are discussing this is because India has joined the Troika since it will now be taking over the presidency from the current in charge, that is Indonesia. Before Indonesia, the G20 last year was being headed by Italy. So the three nations in Troika at present are Indonesia, Italy, and India. Exactly 1 year from now, that is December 1, 2022, will be when India will officially take over the charge of G20 from Indonesia, when the summit will be held for the first time in India. The next summit that will be held in Indonesia in October 2022 will have the theme of Recover Together, Recover Stronger. The G20 nations make up most of the world's largest economies, including both industrialized and developing nations. The group came into being in 1999 after a series of economic crises around the world in the 1990s. Next is a previous year question from 2019. With reference to the land reforms in independent India, which one of the following statements is correct? Number 1. The sealing laws were aimed at family holdings and not individual holdings. Second, the major aim of land reforms was providing agricultural land to all the landless. Third, it resulted in cultivation of cash crops as a predominant form of cultivation. Fourth, land reforms permitted no exemptions to the ceiling limits. Out of these given statements, the correct one is B. The land reforms in independent India were not very successful because of these statements. Because the initial land reforms were aimed at individual holdings and not family holdings, which is what allowed people to divide their land amongst the family members and beat the law. Third is also wrong. Cultivating cash crops is not just about having land, it requires a lot of other things as input. India could not shift to cash crops cultivation for a very long time after independence, which also kept the farmers in India economically much weaker. The fourth one is also wrong. The land sealing law had a lot of exemptions for different purposes. That is why the correct answer is B. These exemptions included land for tea, rubber plantations, orchards, dairying, etc. Time now for the fact of the day, and today we will be discussing the government's plan to hold a common entrance test for all the central universities. The government's plan is that from 2022-23 academic season, there shall be a common entrance test for all the central universities across the country for undergraduate and postgraduate courses. To implement this, the University Grants Commission has written to the 45 central universities to discuss the roadmap for its implementation. Now, interestingly, the UGC did have such an examination which has been going on since 2010. This is called the Central Universities Common Entrance Test. But it is not binding on all the central universities to admit students from this test. In fact, only 12 central universities this year from Assam to Kerala have used this test to include students in their programs. Ever since the new education policy suggested having a common entrance test for all central universities, the UGC has been trying to convince more central universities to include CUCET and admit students using this test only. This common test will cover science, humanities, language, arts, and vocational training and will be held twice every year. While it is expected that the new pattern of this test will differ after all the 45 central universities come under it, but the current pattern gives a hint about what kind of a new pattern can be expected in this test. At present, this test consists of two segments. Part 1 tests the candidate's language, general awareness, maths, analytic skills, while Part B evaluates the domain knowledge, that is, the course that the student wants to opt for. For postgraduate courses such as the MBA or MCA, there will be only one paper having 100 MCQs from English, reasoning, numeric ability, general awareness, and analytical skills. This is the present pattern of this examination. There are still deliberations ongoing for the new pattern, which will include all the central universities. The reason why very few universities have accepted this since 2010 is because not everyone is in favor of this idea of having one common entrance test. The reason being that students come from very different backgrounds and cannot be expected to tackle a centrally set paper which is same for everyone. However, whether these fears are realized or these fears are not found to be true will only be seen once the test is implemented. This is it for today's session. Thank you so much for watching the video.